Market comes off morning lows in a thin year-end trade. IT, Realty are the weak spots, while metals and healthcare exhibit strength. Reserve Bank of India, in its financial stability report, has flagged the rise in write-offs, especially by private banks, saying that these could be masking worsening asset quality in the retail credit segment. Ease My Trip co-promoter Nishant Pitti is likely to exit the company via sales of his 14.2% stake. Nishant had earlier divested a near 14% in September for over 900 crore rupees. The move raises eyebrows with questions around the motivation for the move. EV player Ather Energy's 4,000 crore rupees IPO has got SEBI's green light. The fresh issue of shares to raise 3,000 crore rupees will help it expand capacity by 3.5 times. Two-wheeler maker Hero MotoCorp will remain its biggest shareholder. Brent crude rose above $74 per barrel after U.S. inventories declined and China's manufacturing activity saw a positive expansion in December. With this recovery, oil is set to close 2024 with modest losses near 0.5%. Hello, good afternoon. You've tuned into Business Lunch on CNBC TV18 and I'm Vinny Motiwala in the Mumbai News studio. Let's look at what the market is doing today. Surely recovered from the day's lowest point. So surely good afternoon that is shaping up for the markets as of now. When you're looking at it in terms of the Nifty, that's down 0.2% in trade. 23,584 is what we're watching out for. In terms of contributors, we're seeing Kotak, that's the top contributor, SBI, ONGC as well as ITC among the top contributors, while what's not doing well is ICICI Bank, TCS, Infosys and TechM. So IT pack, let's pull that up. The Nifty IT, that's clearly under pressure today because we've seen the top laggards in the Nifty 50 also coming in from the Nifty IT side. Nifty IT as of now is down almost 2% in trade. Okay, let's look at Nifty Bank now. While we saw SBI actually making on the positive side and a positive contributor for the Nifty 50, the private banks recovered from the day's low, but seems like Nifty Bank overall is a bit under pressure as well. Other than that, what we should watch out for is also in terms of the Nifty Pharma specifically today. Nifty Pharma is among the top sectoral gainers today. We've seen a sharp up move coming in for the Nifty Pharma. Aurobindo, Lupin, Laurus are among the top movers coming in for the Nifty Pharma today. Lupin, obviously, there's news flow, but other than that, the Pharma pack as a whole is buzzing in trade today. And IT, specific names I'm just going to highlight. Persistent, Emphasis and TechM clearly under pressure today as well, among the top losers for the Nifty IT and top drags coming in for the Nifty IT. But yes, that's how the market is looking like as of now. On that note, let's get started with the show and talk about RBI's stability report that has come in. This is the financial stability report that they released last evening. Now, this is showing a rise in bad loans and they've warned about a sharp increase in write-offs at private banks. Ritu is bringing us more details of what is coming in on this stress test that is taken by from the central bank.
I'll start with some of the key risk areas that RBI has flagged off in the financial stability report, starting with the retail loan segment, where RBI points out that while the retail segment gross NPAs at 1.2% are stable so far, the bad loans in the unsecured segment are higher at 1.7%, with more than half of retail loan slippages across the system coming from the unsecured segment. But what's more concerning, says RBI, is the sharp rise in retail loan write-offs, particularly by private sector banks, which could be masking deeper issues like bad asset quality and weaker underwriting standards. Microfinance is another area under strain. Stress assets, those overdue between 31 and 180 days, more than doubled in just 6 months, rising to 4.3% as of September. And borrower indebtedness is also climbing. RBI says nearly 6% of borrowers now have loans from 4 or more lenders at a time, compared to just 3.6% 3 years ago. And loan sizes have also ballooned, up 43% in the last 3 years on average. In consumer credit, the report says around half of credit card and personal loan borrowers are juggling another high-ticket loan. So smaller personal loans are putting secured loans, which are larger as well, at risk, because keep in mind a default in any loan category results in the loans of the same borrower being treated as an NPA as well. Now, if we look at RBI's stress test results, which are not projections but rather outcomes that are based on hypothetical stress scenarios, they suggest gross NPAs could more than double from 2.6% as of September to 5.3% by March of 2026 in the worst case adverse scenario, with public sector banks remaining most vulnerable. But even in the base case, RBI says NPAs are expected to rise in the coming year as per the stress test. Now, capital adequacy remains resilient at 16.6%, but it could drop all the way to 14.3% under one of the stress test scenarios. As for NBFCs, a stress test showed that gross NPAs could rise sharply from 2.9% to 6% under high risk, while capital adequacy could fall to 20.2%. Alarmingly, 15 NBFCs could fail to meet the minimum capital adequacy ratio if severe risks materialize. So overall, the report paints a mixed picture. The system shows resilience on one hand, but on the other, vulnerabilities are emerging across retail, microfinance and consumer credit.
Thanks for that, Ritu. Now let's move on. And the aero component manufacturer Unimac Aerospace listed today on the D Street with an 85% premium to its issue price of 785 rupees. Earlier today, we spoke to Anil Kumar P, who is the chairman and managing director of the company, and he spoke about the company's revenue growth target and how they plan to expand. Listen in.
From a revenue point of view, we, as you see on our DRHP, we've booked about 120 crore in the first half of the year. And usually second half of the year is always better in the nature of business that we are in. So while I would say you would have a decent growth compared to the last year, and especially with the capacity that we have installed recently, and the utilization is picking up, and for investors definitely it's going to be a gain, I would say, from a, the revenue, the business performance point of view. We are already in the process of growing our business in the domestic domestic world. Especially the Indian defense is is picking up. There's a massive opportunity that we have yet to grab, and also the nuclear sector with the the nuclear power capacity demand increasing from at least 3 times from where we are now. So we want to kind of capitalize the opportunities in the nuclear and defense segment, and also to an extent space segment. So we are definitely looking at expanding to Indian market.
Okay, on that note, we're going to step into a very short break, and we'll return and we'll take a look at how cryptocurrencies are fared in the year 2024. So stay tuned in for that. Welcome back to Business Lunch on CNBC TV18. And yes, tomorrow is the first of the month, and we will have the auto sales numbers that will be coming out for the month of December. What are we expecting this time from these December sales numbers? Let's look at that. Most segments likely are expected to see a growth coming in the wholesale side. Overall, two-wheelers are likely to post a wholesale growth of around 5% versus a 14% decline in terms of registration. PVs are likely to see a wholesale growth of 4%, and Vahan registration is expected to be up by 3%. Now, specifically, let's break down in terms of the sectors as well as, the segments. So PV, two-wheelers, as well as commercial vehicles and tractors. Now, in passenger vehicles, demand trends are expected to be a bit subdued this time. High discounts are persisting. That is clearly of the year. Clear off the year-end inventory. So that is something that we are watching out for. Because of these high discounts that are there, they have inventory, they want to pass that off. So that is an important one. Now, Nomura is maintaining an estimate of around 1% volume growth in the PV industry for FY25. And when you're looking at it in terms of numbers also coming in, we are expecting a decent move coming in on the passenger vehicle space. Specifically, look at it for Maruti Suzuki. We are expecting 1.63 lakhs is what the units are expected, versus last December was 1.38 lakhs. Similarly, for other passenger vehicle players as well. Now, in terms of two-wheelers, registration is down 14% YOY due to last year's high base that they saw coming in because of the festive season side. Nomura is expecting a 12% growth in two-wheeler side for the industry for FY25 with some bit of a downside risk. Keep an eye out on that. Commercial vehicles expect to see a gradual improvement this time, especially coming in terms of the government spending front. So that will be interesting to watch out for. But in terms of demand for tractors, that's expected to be a bit muted. So keep an eye out on that. Expected to do well, I beg your pardon. Good rainfall. Crop prices are something that is improving the rural sentiment. So maybe an improvement is something that we could watch out for in terms of the tractor players. M&M tractor sales are expected to be somewhere, see an increase of around 16% this time around as well. So yeah, surely an interesting way to keep an eye out on in terms of the auto sales numbers for the month of December. And we'll start seeing them pouring in tomorrow. But let's move on now and focus on Bitcoin, with Bitcoin crossing the record highs of $100,000. President-elect Trump is taking a pro-crypto stance, and more countries are accepting cryptocurrencies as legal tenders. 2024 has been a breakthrough year for cryptocurrencies. Manisha is bringing us more on how the world of cryptocurrencies evolved in 2024 and what to expect in 2025.
2024 became a landmark year for cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin smashed through $100,000 mark to hit all-time highs at $108,000, surging 130%. The crypto market cap also hit a record highs of $3.9 trillion. The year 2024 started on a very high note with launch of Bitcoin ETFs, which gave an easy access to individuals and institutional investors without the complexities of wallets and private keys, accumulating more than $110 billion of inflows. Ethereum did not lag too far behind, with ETF inflows above $2.7 billion, making its place in decentralized finance. Well, the institutional investors now own 20% of all Bitcoin ETFs traded in US, and then it was Bitcoin halving, an event that happens every 4 years. It leads to reduction in the block rewards by 50%, lowering the supply of Bitcoins. And then it also was about rally taking wings after the US President-elect Donald Trump's pro-crypto stance. He has pledged to make US the crypto capital of the world. He also suggested that the US Bitcoin reserve could be a possibility, and there was also a discussion of using Bitcoin as potential tool to repay the US debt. Trump also has nominated Paul Atkins, who's a known crypto advocate, to succeed Gary Gensler as the US SEC chair, which the crypto bulls have totally cheered, expecting favorable regulations going forward. Well, then you had the Russian President Vladimir Putin also recently saying that no one can prohibit Bitcoin, showing support for cryptocurrencies. The approach from Poland, Italy, and even China showed signs of revisiting previous critical policies. And then after El Salvador, countries like Tonga, Paraguay, and Panama are now considering adopting Bitcoin as a legal tender. Well, the cryptos also are taking support from wider adoption of real-world assets. Stablecoins are emerging as payment tools for enterprise businesses. The year 2024 also had its share of frauds, hags, and rug pulls. The sector lost nearly $2.3 billion in 2024 in frauds, which clearly is lower than the last year, but nonetheless a big amount. The names that went through these issues were WazirX, Radiant Capital, DMM Bitcoin, among many others. While the Bitcoin grabbed all the spotlight, altcoins also delivered significant returns. Tokens like Solana, Ethereum, Ripple, Cardano have all hit all-time highs in this year. While lesser-known altcoins like Palm AI, Mantra surged anywhere between 10,000 to 20,000%. Well, in the past year, meme coin market capital also was in favor. Market capital hit $113 billion, led by Dogecoin and Shiba Inu as per CoinGecko data. 2025 shows a lot of promise for cryptocurrencies and also blockchain as a technology. The markets have put even higher targets for Bitcoin for 2025, with Standard Chartered and Bernstein expecting $200,000 for Bitcoin. MicroStrategy expects Bitcoin to rise 29% per annum for the next 21 years. But remember, it's a volatile space with significant risks. With so much unknown about projecting its future returns, it's always pays to be cautious.
Thanks for that, Manisha. But on that note, we're going to slip into a very short break. And as we slip into the break, CNBC TV18 asks some key questions. How will the Nifty perform in 2025? What are the sectors and themes to bet on? Will the faltering GDP growth revive in 2025? Will the RBI start cutting rates in 2025? We will ask all these questions to our experts. So stay tuned in for the most comprehensive market poll tomorrow, only on CNBC TV18. Welcome back to Business Lunch on CNBC TV18. A quick look at what the market is doing as of now. The Nifty small cap, that seems to have moved on the green side. So let's pull up the Nifty small cap where that is headed. Though Nifty obviously has recovered, small cap also has recovered from the day's lowest point, trading in the green. Almost 0.2% of gain is what we're seeing coming in for the small cap. Nifty mid cap also is trading now just with cuts of almost 0.3% in trade. So surely we're keeping an eye out on these names. But individual names that we should be talking about is one, REITs. That's doing quite well, holding on to gains of almost 10-11% in trade today. We have Chennai Petrochem, that is also up almost 6-7%. So let's see that. And other than that, in this mid and small cap side, we have something like a MRPL, Reddington, as well as Latent View, which are managing to hold on to gains. Now, other than that, in terms of losers, Adani Wilmar today is under pressure. Yes, last afternoon we had seen that news flow coming in about Adani Enterprises moving out of Adani Wilmar, exiting completely out of Adani Wilmar, the 44% stake. So yes, because of that, we're seeing Adani Wilmar under pressure today. Adani Enterprises also under pressure as well. So that's how we're seeing some individual names move and trade today. But let's move on and let's get you some geopolitical updates that are coming in. Now, the U.S. Treasury Department has said that a China state-sponsored actor infiltrated the department workstation in what is being described as a major incident. The hackers gained access to employee workstations and some unclassified documents in the hack. In a letter to the lawmakers, the department said that China-based actor was able to override security via a key used by a third-party service provider. Investigation into the hack are currently underway. Moving on and to some updates coming in from the scientific world, ISRO successfully launched 2 spacecrafts, the Chaser and Target, into the Earth's orbit as a part of a SPARDEX mission set to demonstrate in-space docking. Now, the PSLV-60 took off from Sriharikota at 10 p.m. last night after completing a 25-hour countdown. The docking process is expected to take place around 7th of Jan. Okay, on that note, let's go across to Hormaz, who's standing by to tell us about Ease My Trip. Why is that under pressure? Especially, we've seen the selling coming in by Nishant Pitti. What more is on that front? Hormaz is here. Good afternoon.
There's always a way Easy Trip finds its way to be in the headlines. Now, be it the Maldives controversy or its foray into different businesses beyond its core, there is a lot to talk about it. Now, let's take a look at the company and what is the latest that has brought the spotlight back on this travel aggregator. Now, news came in on Monday evening that its co-founder, Nishant Pitti, one of the promoters, is planning to sell and exit the company by selling his remaining 14% stake via block deals. Now, however, only 1.2% of that stake has been sold so far. Now, based on the data last checked, now at the time of its IPO, the shareholding in Ease My Trip was divided among Nishant, Prashant and Rikant Pitti. Now, Nishant and Rikant had majority of the shares, while Prashant had a negligible stake in Ease My Trip. Now, post its IPO in March of 2021, Nishant and Rikant Pitti, the shareholding was down to 37%, while Prashant's stake remained constant at around 0.5%. Now, by June of 2022, both Nishant and Rikant gave 5% each of their stake to Prashant, taking his total shareholding to 10.5%. And as of December of last year, more than 65% of Nishant Pitti's 28.7% holding was locked up. Now, come March this year, that was over. Then came the selling. Now, in September this year, Nishant Pitti sold a 14% stake in a block deal that was earlier planning to sell only 8%, and that fetched him a good 920 crore rupees. Now, Pitti may have halved his stake, but who bought it? Did institutions buy it? Not really. because the institutional shareholding in EasyTrip is nearly down to zero. Now, what started off at around 6% at the time of its listing 3 years ago, domestic mutual funds now have only 0.2% stake in the company. So who has got the stock gone to? Well, no prizes for guessing. Retail. Now take a look at this. Now, domestic funds retail shareholding too stood at around 6% in March of 2021, and come December this year, that stake has gone up to almost 34%. So retail investors technically own a third of the company. Now, in absolute terms, there were 50,000 retail investors in EasyTrip during its IPO, and that number has gone up to almost 10 lakh by December this year. Now, in January of 2024, EasyTrip had suspended its bookings to Maldives following a diplomatic row, a move later reversed in October. Now, however, during this period, the number of retail shareholders in the stock has doubled. Now, EasyTrip has on numerous instances dangled this bonus issue carrot to keep the retail flock interested. Now, it announced a bonus issue in February of 2022, another one in November 2022 when it also announced a stock split, and another bonus issue came in as early as October of this year. Now, but have financials matched up to this? Not quite. Now, net profit at the end of FY22 was 24 crores. That number is still at 26 crores. Now, even after making a peak of close to 50 crores. Now, EasyTrip has also been in the news for its interest other than its core business, because earlier this year, Nishant Pitti along with SpiceJet chairman Ajay Singh submitted a 1600 crore bid for the now defunct Go Air. Now, Pitti withdrew from the bid in his personal capacity in May this year, saying that he wanted to focus on the long-term vision of the company. Now, the company also announced plans in September to foray into manufacturing electric vehicles. A travel company making EVs would left many question marks, but the kind of market that we were in back then, the stock went up 11% post the announcement, only to fall 6% the next day. So what next for EasyTrip? Now, to be fair, there are multiple questions to be asked. Now, one, will Nishant Pitti be able to sell his remaining stake? Two, if he does manage to do that, will other promoters follow suit? Now, will retail continue to pile into the stock on the lure of these bonus shares and stock splits? And lastly, all eyes will be on the December shareholding pattern, and that should be up anytime next month. Now, it has been 4 years since EasyTrip went public. It has had its moments, both good and bad, but the trip ahead is anything but easy.
Okay, surely we'll be keeping an eye out on that. Thanks so much for that, Hormaz. But on that note, we're absolutely out of time on this edition of Business Lunch. Thank you so much for tuning in. Midcap Radar up next.